Good morning. Let's play. It's Hana's tea room, and we're doing a sweet treat game today of Do You Remember? I thought that we'd have some fun to start the weekend. Okay, the first one up is Do I remember my first video game? Yes, it was Sonic the Hedgehog. I played it on one of the older systems, and I really enjoyed it. And I played it with a lot of my uncles and cousins. They loved the different levels, and I always loved the design of Sonic. It was one of my favorite games growing up. I also played Qbert on the PC, but it was definitely Nintendo for me, playing the Sega and Sonic games. What was my first anime? Speed Racer. In kindergarten, it was on television. I didn't know why it appealed to me so much, but the level of detail was much different than normal cartoons that you see on television. And the story had way more depth. So I really loved Speed Racer growing up. And I also liked the Hayao Miyazaki movies. And those were really fun to watch on television too. It had a lot of interest to it that I didn't find in other movies. Overall, it was one of my favorites. My first manga was Ranma One Half. I got into it in junior high. A friend of mine showed me it and said, "It's a really interesting series." So I read one, then one became two, and then eventually read the whole entire series, and branched into other anime and manga from there. Sailor Moon manga came a little bit later, so Ranma definitely got me really into the manga libraries. Now, even nowadays, I always check each week to see if there's any new manga or light novels at the bookstore. There's hardly any Rumiko Takahashi stuff in the bookstores lately, but there is still a select few. My first comic book was the Archie comics. The very, very fun four panel comics, and then the full mini stories that each Archie comic digest had in it. My favorite character was either Betty or Jughead. So it's nice that they had them as major characters in the Riverdale series, though that one's super dark and it's complete opposite of what I grew up on. I always loved the different comedic stories that they had in the original Archie comics. It made it very, very soothing and fun to read on a regular basis, and you never had to worry about questionable content like on Riverdale, where you never know where everything's going to go in the storyline. My favorite superhero growing up? Superman. I would always love watching him save the day, and then I'd see him guest star in The Lucy Show, which is one of my favorites. Very, very funny. He always had fun back in the day on different programs. The old Technicolor and black and white Superman, that was fun. And I kept on loving every show that he would go on, every comic book, and every update up to the modern era, especially the Arrowverse. We were lucky to have Legends of Tomorrow and gave him a really nice story there. I'm hoping that they give him a little bit of closure as the series wraps up on the CW. My first musical was Singing in the Rain with Gene Kelly. It was my favorite growing up, and I loved learning his choreography, all the wonderful songs, and all the fun comedic elements to the musical. To this day, I always love rewatching it. It always feels like new to me. As I always find different scenes that I like a lot more than others, and grow to love scenes that I used to love too. Well, either way, I love the whole entire package. There was never something that stood out to me that was something that I didn't like. Everything in there was wonderfully directed. To this day, I'm never found one that's exactly like Singing in the Rain, other than Brigadoon and probably Grease. Those ones, I love things that have epic story and romance and a wonderful soundtrack. Gene Kelly set the bar for musicals for me. Who was my first Disney princess? Cinderella. I always loved the color palette and the story itself, and how one young girl could move up from such hardship to become a princess in the very end, though she was always a princess in my eye. My other favorite was Sleeping Beauty, because of all the wonderful songs and costumes. And the fact that she wore pink definitely stood out for me a lot. My favorite first children's program was Mr. Rogers. I always loved all his life lessons. Most of the stuff I've learned cultural-wise and politeness-wise and values all came from Mr. Rogers. We may not be able to get to see it on television as of late or anything like that, because they want to modernize it and go cartoonish. But Mr. Rogers, the original, was always a mainstay in my house. And learning from him was always a treat. I always got into jazz and classical music and all the different musicals from him. He would always introduce us to something, a new concept, or a new like art form, or any sort of fun thing like an aquarium or how to brush your teeth and stuff like that. You get to learn a very, very valuable lesson every time you would turn on a single program of Mr. Rogers. Another one was Thomas the Tank Engine. Back then, they used to mix the 2D Thomas with live action, with a myriad of different characters and humans that would interact with the trains on a regular basis, or have a story all to themselves. A lot of famous musicians and different actors got their start on Thomas the Tank Engine until they moved up to what they have today, where there's no humans whatsoever unless they have been animated. I kind of miss the old stories and the music and everything, but the new stuff has its charm. I'm kind of a classic in that way, that I always like the originals. I also watched Sesame Street growing up, like most people. Seeing Big Bird and Elmo and everybody was really, really fun. There always was a Canadian Sesame Street as well on on the CBC. So that was before lunch, so I got to have grilled cheese with my Sesame Street program. The concepts were the same as the Sesame Street that you see in the United States, but it was a little bit more rustic for the Canadian version. You could also watch Mr. Dress Up at the same time. So Mr. Dress Up, then it was Sesame Street for Canada. And we also had the Big Friendly Giant. I found all the programs that they had on CBC really, really fun. And it was fun always to see Mr. Dress Up pick up something from the tickle trunk and change into that character for that one segment. And the puppets were always so cute. And the Big Friendly Giant was really, really fun with all his puppets and miniatures and the stories he would tell. There was also Fred Penner, which was really fun, and Sharon, Lois, and Bram. I was a big classic kid when it came to all the puppetry, the songs, and everything that they had for the children's programming back in the day. It was always fun to hang out with my family at the same time. And then afterwards, watch soap operas, which my first one was General Hospital, and my second one was All My Children. Back then, they had family-friendly programming, and there was romance on the show, but usually it wasn't too racy or anything that would turn off most kids from the television. It was really, really fun. Robin Williams was on it. They always had guest stars from different sci-fi things, different actors from comedies. It was fun. Elizabeth Taylor was on it. It was, the stories were overarching, and then a lot of the guest characters could go into different soap operas at the time. Like All My Children characters could go into General Hospital, and likewise. Some of the originals are still on the show, like Laura and Anna, to name a few. So I try to keep up to date with those storylines, but all the romance and the lightheartedness that they used to have back in the day has been mellowed out or put to the side for the more dramatic and more edgy content, because it's mostly focused on murders or crime or basically people fighting amongst themselves. Only a select few storylines have romance, which is the ones I follow nowadays, with Jocelyn and Dex. That coupling is very romantic. They're falling in love with each other with every episode, which is really, really nice to see. They're a bit of peace in the middle of a whole bunch of dramatic storylines. I'm hoping that they bring some more romance back in before Valentine's Day. They're planning on a Valentine's Day wedding episode, but I'm not really hopeful that it's going to stay romantic, because there's going to be a lot of drama when one storyline blows up about someone's paternity. And I don't want to get too far into it, because technically all the drama is not that much fun to rehash. My first real-life hero was my grandfather on my mom's side. He could do almost anything. He was a great carpenter, a great toy maker, a great artist, and could fix mostly anything in the house. If you called him, he'd be there as fast as he could to help organize everything and keep everything under control. He was in the military back in the day, so he was kind of used to it. I have a lot of his handcrafted items still in my room, and that I keep as a collector's item and a memento of his life. There was a few Japanese lacquer boxes that he had, so I kept them as well, and some of the wall scrolls he had back in the day. He was big on those Oriental arts, and so I got along with him very, very well. So you can also say that he was the one who got me into art and drawing and illustration. My first Sanrio character was My Melody. I always loved her stories, the little cute bunny, and then way she met with Hello Kitty and all the different other characters like Cinnamon Roll. But yeah, the pink little bunny was always my favorite. That's why I also liked Miffy and that cute little white bunny. She's anything that has a bunny in it, I'll love. It was also because of my first ever plush animal. Growing up, my mom gave me my first one, which was a mouse, which made me love cute small animals. I still have my little mouse to this day, and I also have my mouse blanket, and it's still in good condition, which I maintain by keeping it in the closet, safe, without anyone touching it. It's in pristine condition. It's nice and soft. My first writing style was I would write my stories in script style, outlining the setting and then putting all the dialogue in. I was very descriptive of where things had to be, where the characters had to be at any given moment, and made it like a small little movie or play or television show. Until I went to story style, third person, and developed it from there. It's a little bit more concise when it's in a story form. That's what I can find. But I still add the detailed elements that I would for a script, like the how, why, when, and where, and make it very, very character driven. But definitely my stories are always poetic in prose style, very descriptive. And I always try to make the character jump out of the page and make you feel like as if you're walking with her rather than just watching it play out on screen or me telling you what she's doing versus showing. I was always taught that in English class. You show rather than tell. And I've loved that analogy ever since. It also developed my skill for knowing what a character's motivation is, which is really fun. My first long epic was Lord of the Rings. I enjoyed breaking up into parts and learning each character's motivation slowly over the course of a few months trying to read it all. My second epic was Game of Thrones. And that one, I'm still waiting for the next books to get used to it. The television shows are not quite the same as the books. That's what I can say. But they have its charm any other way. I would really enjoy watching and reading them both at the same time to get the full picture of the universe that Tolkien and G.R.R. Would make on a regular basis. G.R.R. Martin, yeah. Sometimes if you've author's been away for too long, sometimes you can forget the name. But yeah. Did I enjoy the movies for Lord of the Rings? Yes. I love the extras too. I always watched The Hobbit as well, so I had the complete picture. And so did I have the prequels, which was nice too. Have I read Lord of the Rings lately? Not really, not quite. I haven't picked up the books again since I read it 2 or 3 times before. But that was my favorite first epic. Otherwise, my first major series was probably The Secret Garden and the Alice in Wonderland series. That was kind of an epic in its way because they had like a prequel and then the sequel, then the middle section. The Alice in Wonderland was so pretty and beautiful and epic, and so was the Secret Garden and all the different books that the author created over the years. I loved the Alice character, and I always loved the Mad Hatter because he was pretty fun and complex. I loved his little tea party. So definitely you can say that I love that part of Disneyland when I saw it because of all the beautiful tea party settings. And the secret garden goes without saying that I love anything to do with gardens. My first crafting experience was making a Disney needlepoint. I did Mickey once, and then I did Minnie. They were small little needlepoint projects, and I would be able to take it to school and do it during break or during reading sessions. It was a fun elementary school project, and I got a lot out of it. I'd sometimes also bring my knitting as well. But my first crafting experience was definitely needlepoint. Which musical performance type came first for me? I participated in choir first, growing up as a child. In kindergarten, singing was really, really fun for me, so I branched into their choir program. And then when it was possible for us to go into band, I soaked up learning the clarinet. But definitely choir was always my number one. Then I was able to go into vocal jazz, which was super fun as well. I really enjoyed the experience of going to City Hall, performing, getting a little candy cane at Christmas, being on television for their little TV spots for the government. And I also enjoyed going to the festivals and all over, just performing. It gave us a very, very professional experience, and it taught us how to handle waiting and how all the prep work behind a performance, like setups and taking down, cleaning, organizing the music scores, that sort of thing. It taught us how to be serious and work really hard to make a product look nice. We even recorded our own little cassette tape of our performances once in a while. It taught us how hard it was to do the recording process and what it took to actually set up a studio. We used the gym, so the acoustics was just right for us. We did CDs mostly in junior high and high school, so we were able to get an actual studio then. It was fun letting the professionals help us out and getting us all set for things. My grandfather on my father's side also taught us how to be professional like that. So he would always support us in our entertainment career. Though he did have a few things to say when we had concerts the same day as our family dinners or family events. So you can say that was a bit of a give and take sort of thing. We also had that issue when it came to normal people at school and us performers, because we were able to leave class and we were able to do other things and travel and everything, but the normies, never got to leave unless they were sports people. Then they could, but the normal people had to sit through school the whole time, so they kind of looked down on the sports people and the performing arts people, because we actually had work to do and they had to do school work. But they didn't realize how hard it was to balance our school life and performance life, finding the right time to study and the right time to practice, and yet again balance performance and school work inside the school. It's quite a different thing to balance every single aspect of performing and for school and for other activities, and balance family life as well, which is hard, yet I found it really, really rewarding. I wouldn't regret a single moment of it. I loved how enriching performing arts was in my life, and I never changed a thing about it. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, loved the whole business of performing and dancing and all sorts of fun arts programs. So was my paternal grandmother, who loved going into the parades. So it was very well supported over the years. And I loved inheriting most of the talents from them. My first VTuber a year ago was HanaMates. She got me into it. Back in the day, I loved watching Akatsu on a regular basis. I still do, even despite the series being finished. I looked into something that was similar to Aikatsu, and they said, oh, the whole life branch is similar to Aikatsu. So I looked into different VTubers from that branch, and HanaMates seemed the most friendliest. And so did Noelle, and so did most of the council. So I slowly got into it from them. But HanaMates, with her friendly, sweet, soft, and cuddly side, really welcomed me in. I loved her cuddly cheapness and cuteness and warmth, and the way she connected with her viewers and kept them nice and cozy and warm and well welcomed. You could relate with her, and you could always find something that you liked most about her. It's hard to pick a major trait that I love most about HanaMates, other than how warm and inviting she is, and how cuddly she can be. And Fauna and Mei, and then Iris, and all the different girls are all super welcoming too. And the boys in Tempest are super welcoming as well. Like Haka with his Minecraft streams and all his different languages he speaks and his music skills. He's very sweet and kind. He's growing on me a lot. He's one of the new ones. It's the same with Altair, Kun, and Vesper. It's fun hanging out with them. Axel and Rika Senpai and even Miyabi Senpai. They're all very, very friendly. So I haven't regretted meeting all the different VTubers over the years, men and women. But definitely, I'm glad that I met HanaMates first, because it made it easier to get along with everybody else, because learning from her made all the other VTubers more relatable. Just like when I got into Niji Sanji, I wouldn't have been able to have the confidence to connect with all the Niji Sanji members over the years if it wasn't for the whole Alive members that I met first. And are they similar to the Aikatsu series? They're similar but different. They all have their own personalities, just like Aikatsu, but they are more well-rounded because they have different preferences and likes, and it's not all about the music. It's about the games and activities they do on a regular basis. So, yeah. They're similar but different. Do I want to see the Aikatsu movie? Yes, when it's available. I'm hoping that they have DVD for it. Knock on wood, they bring it. We can wait until some YouTubers sub it and put it on their Discord or on YouTube. It'd be fun to see all the characters what they did after the series ended. And if it's on Spotify for the music soundtrack, you can bet that I would play it on repeat and download it to my Garmin so I can take it from my walks or runs. What was my favorite sport? Do I remember my favorite sport back in the day? Well, I loved track and field mostly, and then I also liked baseball, mostly because you didn't have to go too far from distance-wise when it came to running or jumping or hitting the ball. And the track and field had a little bit of things for everybody to enjoy. I didn't prefer sports that require you to run far distances like soccer or rugby or field hockey, because back in the day I wasn't exactly the most strong in running. Short distances, yes. Endurance stuff, not so much. Could I do endurance running nowadays? I can do short jogs, like 20 minutes or so, but when it comes to like actual running, marathon running or races or something like that, I'll leave that to the professionals or the ones who love running a lot. I'm just doing it to enjoy the process. But my endurance is getting better, so I wouldn't put it to the wayside too easily like I would back in the day. I think running is pretty much a nice therapeutic exercise, every other day type of thing, because you can enjoy just the process of being out in nature. I know that marathons can also have that therapeuticness, but doing it for a long period of time probably isn't exactly my thing yet. What was my first ever brand of shoe? That was, I believe, Nike. I really enjoyed how comfy the shoes were. They were nice and the color schemes were really nice too. I still have my white Nike pair that I customize with shoelaces that I upgrade every few years once I wear out the soles. I've been using my moccasins as of late for my runs, mostly because I want to keep warm in the morning. So, and I know they don't help that much support, but it keeps me warm. And not too bad on my ankles. But I will move up to my Nikes eventually, when it gets warmer and when it gets a little bit more lighter. And then I also, I think it was Skechers I also wore quite often as well, and Reebok. But definitely Nike first. Definitely Nike, for sure. Sometimes I have to remind myself if it's true or not true, because it's been a while since I checked to see what my last shoe was, my first shoe. Sometimes you can't really remember things from that far in the past, especially when you're just a child. What was my first book altogether? It was probably Cat in the Hat, or The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. But most of my first book series was Berenstain Bears. I still have the original books in my library. That and those golden apple ones. But definitely the Berenstain Bear books were one of my first ones. It was back in the day when the adults were still writing new books every few months. The Sun has taken over the business ever since then. and his books are super good as well. He keeps the style of the stories pretty much like his parents did back in the day. Because he's just continuing the stuff that he grew up on as well. Since then, it's not just brother and sister bear. There's a little honey bear as well. So in the characters all have different clothing to go with their extended family setup. The books come very periodically, but the stories are still as charming and lesson learning as they had been back in the day. I'm hoping that now that the son has gotten used to the groove, there's going to be even more stories for Berenstain Bears. Was there any books for Thomas back in the day? Not as much, but there was a lot more stories on television for Thomas. The Golden books were always fun to read too. They were short enough that you didn't feel like you were reading a long story, but they were long enough to hold interest for a good afternoon. I love the different art styles and different lessons that they taught in those Golden books. They still have them to this day, and they're very fun to look at when you're at the bookstore, just to see what's new and exciting in the children's book market. But you'll mostly find me in the manga or light novel section, or the magazines for the all the cottage, core, and recipe books. Those are the most interesting to me and keep my interest longer than, say, a tabloid or a fashion magazine. Because usually those ones don't exactly have that much quality content versus, written wise. The photography is really nice in a fashion magazine or, say, a tabloid. Well, not a tabloid, mind you, but they usually have some sort of interest in the ads. The country core and all the recipe ones have wonderful photography, but it's well balanced out with good stories. Very family friendly and very, very interesting. I also enjoy looking at the different journals to see what designs they have and if Hope Nietzsche will come out with something similar. I love the more simplistic journals that, in more artsy style journals that Hope Nietzsche brings out. And it's well organized all in one, so seeing the English versus the Japanese gives me lots of good ideas there. Just like finding a new tea place and exploring all the different varieties there, plus the teapots and different teacups. It's one of my favorite things. And what was my first trail? The Cedar Hill Trail. My father took me there first, so that was my first, and that'll be always a big thing for me. Though I do love going to Summit Park and then having the whole entire trail to myself, running around. I haven't actually practiced my jogging up to Summit Park yet because it's still too dark in the morning to go up the flight of stairs and around. But I'm willing to try once it gets warmer and once it gets lighter to see if I can do a run from here at the house to Summit Park and back. It'd be a different routine, that's for sure. I'm satisfied with what I have so far with the run to the clinic and grocery store and back, and then to the small little play park at the bottom of Summit Park and back. It's well lit, and you can still get a good 20 minutes in for a nice run around. The Cedar Hill Trail gets a little bit too busy with dogs and lots of joggers covering up the whole trail with their groups. So it's much more fun to do it on around the city on the street sidewalks because there's less people and less reason to stop in the middle of the road just to let someone go past you. What was my other favorite sport growing up? Probably I loved swimming. It was fun being in the water. I think that was about the last question on the list for the Do I Remember memory challenge game. Hopefully you enjoyed today's sweet treat and hope you'll join me the next time. And please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and thank you for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. The support always gives me encouragement to record something new and see what will work next for me. And it allows me to practice my thumbnails and different artwork for the different segments that I give on a regular basis. I've learned that the thumbnails being artistic will always be the best for me. Take care.